Hello, good afternoon. It's the Everton Daily Live. It's Thursday, the 5th of September. It is International Weekend, of course, approaching, which means we don't lose, which is always a bonus. We've not had that so far this season. A free
2
weekend.
weeks without defeat.
Free weekend. Oh, that's a run, one of our best runs. John, just before we've got Armando, John in the studio, as you can see. Got Armando Broja. We'll discuss him a little bit in a minute. But I just wanted to ask you about the Leicester City stuff, which is broken in the last couple of days, being a hot topic of debate between, some Everton fans, I think, are obviously pissed off with it. Of course, they are.
We've been legged over.
But I've seen a few Forest fans who are furious.
Oh, I saw one, yeah.
Absolutely really furious with it. And obviously we had Chelsea being allowed to sell hotels to themselves and be cleared as well. So are we seeing the end of PSR as we know it, Jim? Or is there still some way to go with it?
It's regulation, Jim, but not as we know it.
Yeah, that one.
There's a couple of things, isn't there? It's already on its way out, isn't it? Because they're going to replace it with squad ratios and stuff. But if we set that aside first, the real issue is incompetence and lack of leadership at the Premier League, isn't it? Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I remember many years ago, and there was a fab job that I was about to get. And the group chief exec thought, this is going to work, it's going to be great. I was going to get share options, the business would have grown, all that sort of crap, and maybe I'd have been very, very wealthy now, whatever. Yeah. But one of his non-executive directors tried to stop it, built up momentum, didn't happen.
Yeah.
And the relevance of saying this is that chief exec said, I'm sorry, I've failed to control my board.
Okay.
Right? And clearly Richard Masters fails to control his members, which is the 20 clubs, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I think that's, what we're seeing as symptoms of that, right? The Chelsea thing, that's an example of him not controlling his members. They voted on it in the summer, they being the 20 members, and the 20 members determined it was okay. In other words, they didn't change the rules to stop that thing happening. I think they only got 11 votes in favour of changing it, right? So UEFA don't allow it, the EFL don't allow it, the Premier League do. The 11 who voted for it, well done them, right? Because clearly it would bring some clarity, and at least if it was only a period of time to stop people dodging a bullet, which is what Chelsea have done. And then you're into Leicester. They've dodged a bullet due, again, to the inadequacies of the Premier League and their ability to appropriately draft the rules that have been in place for 10 plus years. You would have thought those rules would have got close scrutiny after the debacle of 2 independent commissions for Everton and 1 for Nottingham Forest. And I'm sort of, whilst I don't have an issue with Leicester, by the way, because I think both Forest's board and Everton's board would have done the same things in the same situation, i.e. taken advantage of the...
Changing your reporting thing?
Well, no, not so much that, but taking advantage of the inadequacies of the prosecution's case, to make sure that you don't get done. It's very much in the space of doing things right rather than doing the right thing. And would we have sat here and pontificated and said, well done, Everton, for taking on the chin, even though you could have got away with it? Of course we wouldn't. There's hundreds of millions of pounds at risk, right? The Leicester thing is straightforward to me. It's a total screw up by the Premier League. Simple as. If you think about it, I'm curious, and we're going to speak with the lawyer, the in-house lawyer, sometime in the coming days. I'll probably go out on MTAG, and I'll be writing an article for the editor at MTAG sometime today or tomorrow as well. Yeah. But my interpretation at the moment is, clearly most people know that at the time that their financial year ended, Leicester, they were no longer a club, capital C club, therefore member of the Premier League, therefore there's no jurisdiction. That's it. It's as simple as that, right? How do you determine whether they are a club with a capital C and therefore a member of the Premier League? They hold a share. Their share was transferred to Luton. Simplistically, if people don't understand how it works, it's a lovely little business, blah, blah, blah. The 20 Premier League clubs are all shareholders in the Premier League, and when 3 get promoted, they become shareholders, and when 3 get relegated, they stop being shareholders. It was the Premier League who instructed Leicester to transfer their share to Luton. And Leicester did it within a week. Now, whether Leicester, when they did it, knew that meant they couldn't be done is an interesting one, yeah? But that's the root of what's gone on here. Curiously, and I think we experienced this, Everton, when we got the ICs, and maybe Forest fans feel they did as well. The original independent commission, or the judge around this Leicester case, sided with the Premier League. The appeal board looked at it more closely and sided with Leicester City. Hence, they're off the hook. And we had that with our huge 10-point deduction. Remember how the appeal said, don't understand how the original commission came up with this? So it appears to me either there's laziness going on there, or there is undue influence going on to some of these independent boards, because they seem to be coming up with things at the first pass which are more favourable to the Premier League than they should be. And then when it really matters on the appeal, it goes the other way. So, yeah, Leicester, well done them. Clearly, morally, it's completely and utterly wrong. Both Everton and Forest have been penalised for something Leicester should get penalised for, and they're not going to. And that's the Premier League's fault.
What did you find the line from the EFL interesting?
I think the EFL one is a curious one, because clearly they got some grief, and they were the target of the initial legal action that Leicester took, which fundamentally said, neither of you lot have jurisdiction over us. Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at what point in the rules of the EFL did Leicester become officially a member of the EFL. I would wager that there was a period of time where Leicester could prove legally that they were no longer in the Premier League, but they also weren't in the Championship either. And that's just, those two organisations need to work more closely. And that's the point. I think that's what the EFL fundamentally said. Now, the interesting thing for me, and I'm being a bit flippant about this, but I think one way you can look at it about the share transfer going on, if you have written a law that says everybody has to have their accounts ready by this time, yeah, then write the law to transfer the share after that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And it just seems to me that the motivation of the Premier League as an entity was they knew they were having a board meeting in June, and they wanted the promoted clubs to attend it, not the relegated ones. So actually, they took their eye off the ball, no pun. Yeah. I nearly swore then. They've made a poor error. And I think the judge in the appeal makes it clear, and I think it was quite polite, that it's quite poorly drafted, the way the laws and the rules hang together. But that's a product, mate, of making it up as you go along. Some of the things that have compromised the Premier League here are those things they put in place last year because they screwed up with Everton in the first place. You know, we didn't get done, if you like, in the right season, as people might have thought. And therefore, they did this accelerated thing of having your accounts ready by December, having them ready by March, things done based upon estimates rather than actuals. Yeah. And Leicester have just exploited the fact that by the time our actual was ready, we were no longer a member of that club. End of.
Weird.
So there's no recourse.
No.
They got away with it.
The whole thing.
Well done, them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really. I'm having a go at Leicester.
I was actually surprised how small the breach was. Did you see the breach numbers?
No.
I can't remember the exact number now. It was 20 odd. Right? It was quite relatively low. Lower than Forest, put it that way.
After having reported that
high watermarks.
The highest ever. So
yeah, so again, I don't know how that's played out. Now, of course, because the 3-year rolling cycle, this year, which would have had them in breach, had they not found a loophole, will still be in the next 3-year reporting cycle. Oh, hang on a minute, they're changing the rules, aren't they? So maybe they got away with it forever. Who knows?
It's mad.
Who knows?
It's absolutely.
It is mad, totally mad. And Richard Masters, mate, well done. And that's just because he's the icon for it. He's the front man. Hence the war story about the chief exec apologising for me not being
I honestly can't understand how he's still
a couple of £1 million a year. You would have thought they would have crawled all over their own rules to make sure this could not happen. And the Chelsea thing, I don't get it, but he went, if you talk about it being him, he went to his board, if you like, which is the 20 members, and said, what do you want to do? And they said, nah, let them do it. So crikey.
It is nonsense.
I really think it would be helpful, I think we've talked about this on the channel before, if we saw how the 20 clubs voted. You know, so we know which clubs effectively stopped that from happening, because there's 9 of them. So,
I mean, that's only... if
you might argue there's only 3, because only 3 had to vote a different way.
But if we're looking at it overall, like we have done in the past, we're still waiting for Chelsea to be done for the thing UEFA done for, and the Premier League said that was ongoing.
That's in progress, I believe, isn't it?
So nothing's happened there, and obviously we know that Man City are
the 115
are gonna be faced. The way it worked out,
Everton have got one in progress as well,
and we've got this disagreement over.
I mean, the unwritten
interest.
The unwritten insight that we get from this is that the Premier League have got a little bit better at not leaking to all and sundry what's going on, because it appears while we've been going, what's happening with Leicester? This was happening. What's happening with Everton? Something must be happening. And you know, and was it Martin Ziegler said, you know, Everton have got a legal case against the Premier League. Now, the judgment, which was interesting, and DeMarco, some of his forthright words, which are in the judgment, are quite helpful for Everton, I think, because he fundamentally fell back on. I mean, there's an old adagey thing that if the facts don't work for you, go with the law. If the law doesn't work for you, go with the facts, you know, and put some uncertainty into it, and that's why you get the reasonable doubt thing, I guess, and what have you. He fell back on, this is how the law works, right? And therefore, I'm astonished if the Premier League are still trying to go after Everton for following international accounting practices, because it's madness. You are spending money that's somebody else's money, right? That's the Premier League, to try and pursue cases for your own ego. You're wrong. Go back to sleep.
Then basically,
close a loophole if that's what you think it is.
Go and get Nick DeMarco.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of which. You got the cards you can play, right? Clearly are important, but we'll never know whether another KC would have spotted what was blindingly obvious to me when I read the judgments. Because the judgment thing's only 20 odd pages. All the Everton ones were 50 or 60 or something, but the judgment, most of it, is background. So it's like reading a novel. You know what the outcome's going to be just by reading the background.
I don't expect anything to happen with that interesting.
I know we said that months ago, didn't we?
It's not even worth.
But it's still ongoing. It's still ongoing. That, and the Premier League seem to think that Everton in our case, and presumably Leicester and so on in their cases, and Forest, that they should pay all the money for the legal stuff. Did you see that? Did you see the story about?
They wanted us to pay 4.9 million.
Yeah, it's not so much that. The cost of their lawyers is like 5 times the cost of Everton's lawyers. The cost per document was something, approaching 20 times. In other words, they're spending somebody else's money and not making sure they get good value. It's extraordinary. And we know the headline number, was it 30, 40 million or something they spent. That's money that didn't go back to the members, i.e. the clubs, that didn't go into grassroots football, that didn't go into a whole host of worthy things. So why the members don't rail against the leadership and say, this isn't what you're there for, I just don't know. I really don't know.
It is mad. It's absolutely mad. But hey-ho. Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Exciting stuff about football, right?
Well, Emma says, anyone hear the Athletic podcast?
No.
Not sure about John Textor wanting to float his multi-club model. What does John think? A good idea or a bad idea?
I don't know.
This was out the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about his multi-club model other than the clubs that are in it, right? But it was out a number of weeks ago that he may raise, capital fundamentally from doing a float. And I think he's doing the float regardless, isn't he? So it's in progress, I guess. He's tasked someone with doing it. I don't have an issue with it. Why would I? You have shareholders. That tends to hold you to account. I'm assuming what that would mean is that a floated, a company on the stock market somewhere would be ultimately the owner of Everton or whichever clubs are in his multi-club group. Yeah, I don't have an issue with it, to be honest.
A lot of people are
I'm sorry, I'd be interested if people who are watching tell me why they would have an issue with it. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Emma's just asking.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think that about Texter leveraging debt to buy Everton? That's what he's done with other clubs, sorry,
Yeah,
and
sure.
people aren't happy with that at all. Absolutely not happy with it. It's, this, that and the other. People worried. It's 777 all over again, whatever. Where do you lie with it all?
I guess part of the challenge here is when you say what you just said, I don't see it as being the same as 777. That's something completely different, right? But that's about communication and understanding and all those sorts of things. If we're talking about leveraging debt per se, in a manner, say, like the Glazers did to get Manchester United, which fundamentally ends up with someone owning Manchester United and Man United having paid to be bought by some themselves, then there's regulations that limit how much of that leverage you can do now. And if the almost goes back to the thing before, if the rules say that you can leverage debt, then people are going to do it up to the line, because again, on my adage of why spend your own money when you can spend somebody else's, it depends therefore what then gets done with that money. If you're leveraging debt to pay off more expensive debt, then that's different than if you leverage debt to be able to give it to somebody. Do you know what I mean? Now, our current understanding has remained the case for quite a long time that Farhad Moshiri isn't going to get much for his shares. And the new owners, whoever they are down the track, are expected to pay off, Friedkin Group, pay off 777, finish the stadium, all those sorts of things. If the leveraging of debt, which is fundamentally, I guess you're talking about borrowing money against assets, which is Everton Football Club, amongst others, then if that money's going back into the club to make the club healthier, then why would it be a problem? I think the fact is we don't know the detail. And also, if the ultimate owner of Everton Football Club is a publicly listed company, where's the debt going to be? Is it going to be at the top of that pyramid, or is it going to be in the individual clubs and those sorts of things? And that's why I asked the question about the multi-club thing, because it's all fine and dandy to have a moderate amount of comfort if you're at the top of the food chain, which you might very well be if you're a Premier League club. But imagine that our huge TV broadcast income was being used to make sure another club in the group won their league. That's not what we want, is it? So the devil is in the detail, mate. I don't think generally having a binary thing that says leveraging debt is bad. It might not be the best, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Businesses do it all the time, right? But devil's in the detail. And I think the scrutiny that Everton fans in the round might give to a new owner on those sorts of things will likely come way beyond when it could make a difference. And if Farhad Moshiri thinks it's fine because it's within the rules, then he'll just let it happen, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, we were doing about it, talking about it a little bit yesterday.
Oh, right, okay. I missed yesterday's. I was out
talking about. Well, people were obviously very nervous because you've got people on the Athletic podcast, obviously using some insight of stuff that's out there, but also opinion.
Yeah.
And apparently they had the Leeds journalist on who's adamant Everton are going down, and he is.
What's his name?
Poor journalist, Phil Hay. I think it is.
Okay.
He's not happy. He's all the signs are there. Everton are going down. Seniors with Leeds and all of that. I don't know why they had the Leeds journalist talking about Everton, but hey,
he was in the office at the time.
But I think some of them were sort of saying about that leveraging debt, and obviously that's worried people, and rightly so. I was saying to me that there doesn't appear to be a perfect buyer for Everton.
Was this when Jack came up with a soundbite that
Jack
was
came up
attributed
with
to you?
the scout sheet that apparently went to me, and I'd said don't listen to the Athletic podcast, which was nonsense because that isn't what I said.
So you updated Matt, didn't you?
I told Matt simply, he was a bit upset that I'd apparently said don't listen to it,
stuff,
which I didn't say at all. What I said was there's no perfect owner out there, so there will be red flags with some of these people. until someone turns up with no red flags, and I'll be at the front of the queue shaking their hand. But right now, I don't think there is a perfect owner. And I don't know if John Textor would be good, bad, indifferent for Everton. Who knows? Seems very passionate.
Did you listen to the podcast?
No.
Okay.
Ped's listened to it.
Okay.
I've got no.
I know. I saw Ped.
I'll be honest.
Done a tweet saying it was good.
I've gone past the thing of reading and listening to anything because it's all nonsense as far as I'm concerned until he's got the club.
Yeah. Because I saw the social media comments, and obviously, hence why I saw your thing. Excuse me, that's not what I said at all. But the quote that was on there, which I guess the Athletic or whatever, maybe it was just something promoting the podcast. I just said to somebody, I can't even remember whether it was a DM or WhatsApp or on Twitter itself, if it just said, as far as we know, because as you say, my understanding is they've said there's no serious interest in buying Everton. That's a fact, isn't it, if you say it like that? Well, that might be the opinion of the people on the podcast, right? But if you precede these things with, as far as I know, there's no serious progress being made on change of ownership.
I think just to clarify, I think they said there is interest, but there's no progress to report right now, so it's still...
Yeah, I'm just going by what I saw,
was, yeah.
and this is the point of it.
Yeah.
This is the clickbaity type thing, isn't it? You know, and people may or may not react to that. Sufficiently for whoever was messaging me, for me to say, well, if it had, as far as we know, tagged on the end or at the beginning, then it just becomes opinion. I think it's interesting that so much gets interpreted, and we see lots of social media comments on these types of things, to the point where we're getting into a situation where people are saying, I'll just pick Ped because he sat over there. Ped should not say that because Ped's got an audience and it's not a fact, it's just his opinion, but the audience thinks it's fact and it upsets everyone. Well, mummy state or what, you know? So people just need to recognise in their own minds that when someone outside of John Textor himself, Farhad Moshiri himself, or the football club itself, unless they're saying it, it's opinion. It may be right, it may be wrong, and you can go whichever way you like with believing it's right or believing it's wrong. You know,
I have no idea. I'm just saying for me.
No, I don't mean you personally. You, the audience.
I stopped listening to stuff and reading,
and that's probably why, because there's too much opinion and very little.
No
fact.
one actually knows.
That's
Only Farhad Moshiri knows what's happening.
Absolutely,
and we've got to. Well, we've not even got to trust them because we can't. People don't feel like they can't trust them. He's going to make whatever decision is best for him at the end of the day. And he can wrap it up as it's best for Everton. But ultimately, he'll make that decision. But until I know that that's going through, then I will concern myself with all the other stuff.
Oh, totally.
Because I've already been down this road with 777.
You don't need to go with
MSP,
Groundhog
777,
yeah.
the Freaking Group. I just can't be. I just haven't got the energy to go down it with John Textor. What will be, will
Imagine you go, sorry, I'll pretend it, you know. I go to you. You're a multi-billion-pound company, and I speak to someone in your organisation saying, has anyone come to you about paying off that debt that Everton owe you? What are you going to say? No. Okay, thank you. There's no real interest because it's 1 and 1 doesn't make 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everything has sensitivity around it, and people who are close to it, and we all have this, actually, people who are close to it know intuitively that, as an example, nothing's going on because we're so close. We know that. But it's how you articulate it to the people who aren't that close. How do you know that? Explain how you know. Now, most people can say, oh, we've spoke to people close to the deal. Hey, every single transfer window, you can have one of those. Do you know what I mean? So unless it's a solid, quotable source, it's opinion.
I've spoken to people who are close to
Ditto.
the deal who have said there's loads going on.
Ditto.
But I can only take that word from that. If you know what I mean.
Course,
I would never sit here and go, I'm telling you 100% now. I know for a fact that's going to be signed. The club's going to be sold at 2 o'clock. Because if you would, because you know there's so many variables can happen there. You just have to go. And now where I am, I'm at the stage of just going. It's almost, I said this yesterday, John, it's almost, if you remember the final game of 2022, the programme notes were there, right, with our esteemed Little Miss Dynamite, in their programme notes saying
Imminent.
that there's imminent investment into
We
our
haven't seen
football
it,
club. 3 weeks later, our owner done a video.
I will get you a centre forward.
But didn't just say that. He said, we are looking for investments into the football club and we're very close to signing with world-class people. Now, obviously, he meant MSP.
I think he probably meant Elevate, but
Whoever it was, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And here we are, almost 2 years later, and he still seems to be in the same position, looking for investments or looking for a sale. Whichever is better, he will get it. So 2 years of my life, I ain't got the time.
But he also said in and around those times, particularly the interview, it might have been the one he did with Jazz Bal, right?
Did he do it with Jazz, or was he in a different room?
No, but you know, he also said, I could pay for it myself if I had to. Well, it looks like he had to, but he didn't. He managed to find other guys who would pay it as you go along.
But now...
So now you'll get the conspiratorial thing, that, which I suspect you are a small advocate of, which is he's waiting for the day when his mate can turn up and come out the shadows and go, ta-da!
Well, the longer it goes...
I'm back!
The longer it goes...
the more likely
it is that Usmanov gets sanctions lifted and just goes, actually, I tell you what, I'll just have it. Because that's how it... Because I just can't get... And I know business is complex and I don't know what goes on. But I just can't get my head around how this just bumbles along. If I'm Farhad Moshiri and this is just me, obviously, my opinion. I don't speak for anyone other than myself, right? But I can't understand, being me, how if I'm wanting to sell something, I'm not moving heaven and earth to get it sold. It just feels like, it's like, you're interested. All right, let's have a little look. Look at this. We'll see what's what. He's quiet. He doesn't say anything. There's just nothing from him. So therefore, for all I know, he's on the phone 23 hours of every day trying to sell it, right? There's no statement from him. There's no interview with him. There's nothing from... It's silence. And therefore, when there's silence and everybody knows he's not fully committed because he's not in or out, is he? He's not come out in the middle of the transfer window going, I'm after this player.
He shouldn't, in my view, but yeah.
He's got to speak to you. This is the...
For whose benefit?
Effective communication, which is something you always preach, doesn't come from Colin Chong, Richard Kenyon, or anyone else at that football club. Certainly doesn't come from the manager.
Okay.
If you're talking effective communication.
Sure.
Christ. Because if this is just me, of course, these are my feelings.
Yeah,
so
of course.
That's
why I said that's like the question, for whose benefit?
Lashed around a sea, and no one's got control of it. And the fella who can get control of it. Listen, if he'd have put in a new board 3 months ago and gone, there's your permanent board, it's all new, I can own the club and be in the south of France, in the sun, doing whatever. They control your club, and you got frustrations vented at them, they're running. He hasn't. He's just left a interim board in place. A fella who should be getting lauded for the way the stadium's gone is actually our CEO by name. I don't think he's a CEO as such, because he isn't. The club feels rudderless to me, absolutely rudderless, right from the top to the manager to everything else. All seem like they're looking for some guidance. That's how it feels. And therefore, this has gone on for 2 years nearly, and this is why I'm sorting
it out. Is it
out.
any different now than it was 2 years ago?
But that's not the point. 2 years of our lives.
No, I get it. But it's...
I know, but it did feel different 2 years ago because there was a board.
Or a year ago then, yeah.
There was a board. 2 years ago, there was a board, wasn't there? Bill Kenwright was still on it, and Moshiri wasn't on it, but was clearly around. Hence how he done the thing. Hence when he turned up at West Ham, we all knew Frank was getting sacked because he hadn't been around. And when he pops in, you think, there could be some,
something's
happening here.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot's gone on since then with our football club. A lot. The last statement we had from him, I think, was to say that he'd sold it to 777. Then there was something about the Freaking Group, but I think it just said we've gone into exclusivity or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Farhad. I might be wrong on that, so apologise if I am. And now it just feels like we're just bobbing. Now, I know you're in it. You have a different mindset to me. I've got no issue with that. I wouldn't tell you you're wrong because I live in my head and you live in your head. But it feels to me when people come back and then go, well, he's got text us this, text us that. I just ain't got the energy to start going, is he? I just think we're rudderless anyway. So we need a resolution from it.
But you know my view on many things.
No, I know.
Because we bore each other to death on that sofa when no one's here. Too much coffee and go, something. But, I mean, ultimately, from a football club perspective, it all comes back to lack of leadership, lack of effective communication, right? or optimal. It makes it easier for people to understand where I'm optimal, right? And many years of Ken Wright being the chair and thinking that saying nothing's safest needs to be unpicked, right? Everything you just said, I totally agree with. Okay. It doesn't distress me because I operate in a different way to you, like you say, inside my head. I don't worry about things I can't affect. I think this is all noise. If you look back a year, I only picked a year because it's after Baxendale and co have gone, then not much has changed, has it? The players might have changed. You play musical chairs. It might be different people, but the game's the same, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
But why are we going into administration every day then? Because that's what we were doing a year ago. Oh, unless this happens immediately. Unless this happens immediately, we'll go into administration, right? So behind the scenes, the ship's bobbling around man in its own business. Outside, there's a load of people, journalists, whatever, right, who are expressing opinions, which is disrupting key stakeholders in the football club. Fans.
The fans,
Okay? If you are the club, you're going, well, what's the problem? We know we're not in the best of shape. We know we've done this, that, and the other. The stadium's getting finished. No need to comment. Somebody has to say, your fans would like you to. They are your number one key. You can come up with your platitudes about the most important thing. You walk the talk.
Yeah, walk the talk.
Right? And so that's where me and you come together. We can go down different things. And when we come back together again, it's if your fan base is getting uncomfortable and whatever, you should do something. Now, ideally, you do something before it happens. Right? I tried to get Denise Baxendale to do a blog on a regular basis. She literally wrote back to me, this is clearly a long time ago, literally wrote back to me saying something like, I'll think about it. And I knew she was never going to do it. We as a club could have been first to have a degree of transparency that people can't imagine, right? But now, I don't know the last time Colin Chong spoke to the fan base. I don't mean programme notes. Who bloody buys programmes these days, right? But it's that sort of thing. Sometimes you're so busy with things that are right in front of you, you don't see the holistic, you don't see the big picture. And the big picture is we need more effective communication with our fan base. Right, and we need to be decisive in our decision making. Everything else is a symptom. I know we talk about symptoms, right? But symptoms are overreaction by the fan base when something goes wrong, because we're all on edge to start with. The straw breaking a camel's back. No way does a straw break a camel's back, but it is if I can't hold anymore. Anything you put on top, bang. Right. We should be embracing that, as you said, for the owner in particular, as he's paid for most of it, embracing this brand spanking new stadium on the banks of Royal Blue Mersey, also enjoying the lady. You know what, when we play in the Carabao Cup, that'll be the 58th anniversary of me being a match-going Evertonian. 58 years to the day that I went to my first ever Everton game. I'm going to cry my bloody heart out on that last game. I'm sitting here saying I'm doing it, even though I'll be on the day trying not. But it's life-changing. And we should be enjoying it, right? And we're not. We've got all this inertia and this noise. Those journalists are doing their job, whether they're doing it on a podcast or writing in the Athletic or the Echo or the Daily Mail. But Matt Hughes has popped up with his exclusive again, which is complete and utter tosh, which is for the Guardian this time. Just writing stuff that's historically not wrong, which has been there for months, as if it's just happened today. You know what I mean? And that's what happens in this world that we're in. Sadly, I can say it doesn't impact me the same way as it impacts you. But I suspect amongst Everton fans, you're in the majority, not me. And therefore, others have to do something about it. And come September, October, November time, when they start to tell us what the ticket prices are going to be for the Everton Stadium, if, as we should, expect that's a significant hike, there's going to be a lot of upset people. You can't just dump things on people like that.
They do, though.
I know, in a world whereby come that time, we may be just lost multiple games on the bounce because of who were playing around that time and so on. So I have some sympathy for the people inside the club who try to stop that happening. Prevention is better than cure and so on. But ultimately, it all comes back to, and this is where we are on the same page, lack of leadership and lack of optimal communication. And leadership is the one. It really is. If Colin doesn't think he can make decisions, then he needs to confront his fellow board members to say, what are we going to do about this? You know what I mean? But it's, wow.
Daniel said the guy from the Athletic made out text that has a very American mindset and is very passionate about the multi-club model. He's doing well with Brazil and poorly with Leon. Well, Leon ended up finishing in Europe, didn't he? They won most of the games in the second half of the season.
We could do that.
They won 1 out of 3 this season, but they did win the last game 4-3 the other day against Strasbourg. So we'll see how they go.
But there's an observation there about the chap saying that, right? It's got nothing to do with the owner, how the football team's doing once the transfer window's closed.
He wasn't talking about that. He was talking about off the pitch, not on the pitch.
Oh, okay. It's got the references to winning and losing games.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, whoever said it, was it you or whether it's Jack with his scouse shake, there's going to be nobody, no matter who they are, unless it's literally the sheikh or the messiah, right? And even the sheikh isn't going to be, even if he's a scouse, is not going to be the optimal owner of this football club, because they have baggage as well, don't they? Yeah, if you're looking for a unicorn, you're going to be looking for a long time.
Yeah, they're not there.
They're not there. Don't exist. Having said that, there's some cack underneath the rocking horse this morning. I don't know where that come from.
Dave Wilson said, just a thought, Baz, are Everton in debt for 600 million? Is this the reason we can't be bought? Well, clubs go for 400, 500, 600, 700, 2.3 if you're United, whatever it is, billion. So 600 million, doesn't matter if it's in debt. The owner's already said he's, 50 million is apparently what he wants.
I don't know where these numbers come from.
No,
but
but that's bounced around. But he already's accepted he's the 400 odd million that he's put in, he's not getting back. So if you just conservatively threw 50 million on it for Mashiri and say you threw 50 million on it for other debts, it will be 700 million pounds to buy Everton Football Club at a brand new stadium and 0 debt because you paid it all off. No owner, I imagine, will pay.
That's an absolute bargain.
Right? No owner, as far as I'm concerned, would clear the debts to 0 anyway, because it's about managing debt. But if they did, it would cost them 700 million pound. 700 million pound for a Premier League team with a brand new 53,000-seater stadium in the city centre, when Premier League club prices are doubling and tripling over the next few years, is buttons, as Darren McCanty, who owns Peterborough United, said. It's nothing. So that figure isn't stopping people buying a football club, nor is the ACAP stuff. It's just not. People can make it up and go on about lawsuits, and it's not stopping anything. It might stop people.
Good man. Well said.
Or it might stop people going, I don't really want to pay that. Because why would they pay?
If in doubt, don't.
Why would they pay 200 million if it didn't have to? But if there was someone there who had 600 million, 700 million, they could buy Everton like that and it'd be debt free and own it all. But where are these people? That's my thing. Where are the people? So far, they've not shown their hand, have they? Someone could buy it for 400 million and go, right, the 200 million to RMF, we'll try and restructure those payments. We'll pay off Freaking, because I think that's one of the things. We'll get rid of them, and we'll pay 200 million to ACAP, and they're gone as well. And then it'd be down to the RMF debt and stuff like that. But clearly, people might be looking and going, I don't want to give someone 200 million if I don't have to. And that's where we are with the people.
Can we just apply some bog standard, not even streetwise, just common sense thing here? Because what you just did was a good summary of where it's at, right? But if you made it absolutely black and white, right? If you say that buying the shares control of Everton Football Club is fundamentally buying shares of Farhad Mashiri, right? How much can you buy Everton for? Answer, however much he wants. Now, if that's 50 billion quid, you can buy Everton Football Club for 50 million quid.
Oh, without the debt,
right?
Sorry.
The problem is, if it is a problem, is Farhad says, but I'm only going to let you have all my shares if you pay off that. And guess what? That happens to be roughly what I'll write off.
Well, someone just said, Paul Thames, said, Ken Bates bought Chelsea for £1.
Yes.
And the cost of their debts.
There you go.
He actually bought the club for £1.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
They had debts of whatever it was.
Whatever it was at the time.
He paid to buy it, to physically buy it, he paid £1 for it.
Because during that little summary, of course, when people are talking here about £600 million debt, of which, we did it on the BWB, didn't we? If you just do it as thirds, which is 777, Free King Group and RMF, you say, well, 2/3 of those you pay off.
Yeah.
That sounds to see what the condition is. The RMF is a recurring type thing, so perhaps that hangs around a bit longer. Who knows? But all of that's based on an assumption that Farhad Moshiri writes off his 450 million quid. Sounds like most people accept that's what's going to happen, and he's not getting due credit for it, is he? Because he, you know, I hear people talking about the worst owner we've ever had. Well, just drive down the Dot Road and have a look, because that's what the worst owner we've ever had's produced. Sadly, as fans, we forget about that if we've just lost a game we should have won. And therefore, if you understand your fan base, yeah, and you understand what, you know, prods them or raises them or whatever, then it's easy to effectively engage with them in a way that makes them feel better about a whole host of things. The reality is we knew nothing about Farhad Bashir until it got announced he just reached agreement to buy the club.
I don't know where you've got this from, me, because this isn't what anyone's saying. Moshiri wants his money, which he thinks is 500 million plus all the debts.
No, that's rubbish.
Yeah, that's nonsense, mate.
But maybe there's someone out there saying that is it, you know, and that becomes folklore then, doesn't it?
But it isn't, is it? Because
no, it's not
enough
true.
People have literally come out and said what the deal is, and he's not taking anything. Or, sorry, the figure that's reported is 50 million for everything. So that's just the only reason I'm throwing that back is because that's been reported by about
you're right.
5 or 6 different sources.
No, you're right, mate. Absolutely.
I don't know.
And
I don't know why he would want
just
that.
like it's reported everywhere, he's going to write off his 450 million, which is a huge sum.
Yeah.
You know, and for the avoidance of doubt, Baz nailed it. You can get Everton Football Club, by the sounds of it, give or take, for about 400 million quid, which is a commitment to settle those debts, those 2 major debts. And you'll have a brand spanking new stadium with huge increase in income, depending on ticket prices and all that, but whatever, the capacity would increase income alone, and an okay squad, which certainly should be mid-table, right? And off you go. So what you're left with then is, well, why aren't people doing it then? And maybe part of the frustration of dealing with Farhad Moshiri is he can be a frustrating little so-and-so to deal with. You know, and he can be vague and evasive and all sorts of things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what he is doing. He's writing it off.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
So, what was I going to say? Broja, Armando Broja has done an interview.
Can we talk about footy? Yeah.
Just very briefly, yeah. Armando Broja has done an interview with Everton's website, Everton TV. Seems very excited.
On you, this, Jack.
Very excited to be here. So we'll bring Jack in to give us his thoughts and opinions on Armando Broja. Jack obviously is injured at the moment. There's no definitive date for him to return, but he does seem excited to be at Everton Football Club. And what do you think he can bring to this squad?
Well, goals, hopefully. That's what we're missing, isn't
He's not
it?
done that loads in his career, so, but, you know, what else? Go on.
Yeah, he's a striker, isn't he? But, yeah, he mentioned possibly out to December, didn't he, in his interview, which... he's a January signing, essentially, isn't he, that we've got first dibs on. We're not paying his wages until he's fit, which I think is a good move by the club. No loan fee as well, so it's low cost. It is essentially a January signing, but we get to have him around the club and, you know, monitor his recovery, and he can learn bits about the way we play and be involved in training in whatever regard he can. And he's a player with something to prove, isn't he? Because he's had a tough time with his injuries, and he's not been in the Chelsea team all that often when he has been fit, and he's not had goal scoring form like he had those first 6 months at Southampton since then, really. So he's still young, he's got something to prove, and if he's ready to knuckle down and get involved, we know we've struggled for goals with this setup of strikers, and he is another one who has struggled to be a consistent goal scorer, but he's still young. And hopefully this can be the place where he can recapture that form and contribute to our season.
Do you think there's any way that Sean Dyche looks at him and thinks he could play off the right-hand side? He is right-footed, he's a dribbler, he's strong. I know working back's probably not his greatest strength, but he'll have to do that for this manager, absolutely he will. Because he did play off the left-hand side for Southampton a bit more than he did right through the middle. Or do you just see him as a better replacement for Dominic Calvert-Lewin than what Beto is, simply because his touch is better and he is powerful and he can keep the ball? How do you see it? What do you think?
Well, I think you've got to look at the squad numbers, haven't you? And what positions we have and what numbers we have to fill those positions. On the right-hand side, we've got Jack Harrison, who's not a right winger. Got Ashley Young, who's not a winger at this stage of his career. He doesn't have the pace. And you've got Jesper Lindstrom, who's not a winger. So, what's one more? He's not a natural fit on that side. But, in terms of strikers, he's our 4th striker we've got at the club. And we don't know where he fits into that hierarchy in terms of would he be above Dom? I don't think he would be. Would he be above Beto? The manager can be a little bit iffy on Beto. Chimiti, he likes Chimiti, but again, he's not scored for us. And Broja has got goals in the past. So, yeah, I think we could see him there. I don't think he'd come in to play that position. I don't think he'd come in as like, right, this is our right winger now. But I think in terms of if we need a body there, he's another one who could perform that role. And that's going to be our approach to the season, isn't it? And especially that right-hand side. It's not who's our right winger, who have we got, who's actually a right winger. It's we've got these who can play right winger, and the law of averages suggests one of them should probably come up all right for us in that position.
John, what do you think?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Why?
Because we need a proper right winger.
But we haven't got
We
one.
don't have one.
So my answer then is may very well be seen as a more appropriate like-for-like replacement for Dominic than Beto is.
Okay.
If he ever played 2 up front, that'd be interesting. When you first asked the question, I would have thought Dom has the more appropriate skills to play out wide than Broja. So playing Broja through the middle and Dom off to one side. But that might just be how 2 up front played out, yeah? But I agree with what young Jack said over there. And anything other than don't play him out there. I like the flippancy of we've got a load of non-right wingers playing right wing, so why not have another one? And I think that probably nails it. Yeah, it does. What do you think then? I know he played off the left. He did us damage when he was at Southampton. So
I think he'll do 2 jobs. Yeah, I think he's someone who we'll look at. This is someone Sean Dyche has wanted all summer.
Yeah,
and Kevin Thelwell really likes him and tried to get him to Everton before. So I think he will. I think they'll look to try and squeeze him in.
Oh, along with
Dominic.
Okay, I get it.
And then maybe either Illiman and Dye on the other side, or Dwight McNeil on the other side to try and supply.
Oh, okay.
You see, I think if you played with Broja and Njai and Calvert-Lewin, and then he had McNeil behind the front 2, you'd almost have 4, wouldn't you? We'd then have to have 2 sitters. That's how he does. Is it Irabun? Is it Garner? Is it James Garner? Is it Mangala? It would give Everton a real genuine front 3. And Jai works back. We know that his numbers, tackling and interceptions were up there with the best at the weekend.
Yeah.
Can he get Broja to do that? I'm not convinced. But it could always drop into a 4-4-2 out of possession. Whereas Jai drops in and Broja almost splits it, because he is very good running with the ball. Yeah. But there'll be other times, I think, when he'll just replace.
So I have a different question then. Yeah, I have a different question, which gives that answer, if you like, which is, will the manager play Broja and DCL at the same time? Well, and if so, how? And I think
he's wanted them, hasn't he, all summer?
I think you've just described how he would do it.
Don't forget, he's got Premier League experience.
Oh, absolutely. That's what's really critical.
But he can. I think the thing is, he can play anywhere across the front 3.
Yeah, so we know he can play off the left because he did at Southampton. Good. Yeah.
So we'll see. Listen, I would rather have him in the squad than not in the squad. That's the way to look at it. And if we'd have got that right winger in, said this last week, didn't we? If we'd have got that right winger in the transfer window with a bit of pace, I think we'd have all been sat here deadline day buzzing with Mangala and Broja, just to add to what we... Because I think overall, I know I couldn't see the wolf for the trees on Friday because it's burning me out. Because I still can't understand how you can chase something the whole summer
and fail and then
not get it. I can't get my head around that. But overall, what we've brought in, I think we are better as a squad.
We are.
The players are just better who we've got options for.
It's the end of Beto.
And it could well be the end of Beto, you're right. If he gets fit, they could end up selling Beto in January.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, we are overall, if Nuamar, and he didn't want to go quite clearly, as he went missing during the medical.
Sure. Yeah.
But we knew he didn't want to leave Leon anyway. But if he would have come in with that pace, we would have been dancing with Broja. I think we'd have gone, what a window that is, Broja. Manga, you know, all these, Irabunum looks great, and Jai, look, do you know what I mean? I think we'd have been all excited by it.
And that's where I felt a little bit bad for Mangala on deadline day, really, because he is a decent addition to the squad, and his arrival was somewhat clouded by the absence of sign and what we really needed, which was a right winger with a little bit of pace. But you're right, we'd be looking at them as good, solid additions to the squad on top of what we really needed, and they are solid additions. And I like every player we've bought this summer. It just doesn't really make sense that we've bought, how many players? 6? And not one of them is the one we really needed.
Yeah, that's the bit where you do scratch your head. You do sort of go, have we ended up without it? But
And that's if you were trying to engage more effectively, you would explain that bit, wouldn't you? But you explain it ahead of time.
Roy says, I wish Darren McCantney had the funds. He's the only one on all the TV show, websites, etc. that talks sense. Plus,
That's why he's not on regularly, because he's not on messages.
He always stands up to the bullshine from that person, Stefan Borson. Well, he's a businessman, isn't he?
But he's also running a goddamn football club and knows what does and doesn't seem right.
Tom said, Baz, did you say last week at Text the Bajos he once rang you in as a director of football? What I said was there was a story going around that said if John Textor gets Everton, he wants Ralph Rangnick in as a director of football. Who knows if there's any truth in that? Ralph Rangnick's got a fabulous reputation as a director
doing right
of
now?
football. He's back. He's always he just managed Austria, didn't he, in the Euros?
Yeah, is he still doing that?
Don't know. Is he still there, isn't he?
I'm not sure, let me check.
Yeah.
Because while that's being
Done a great job with Austria in the
if
Euros.
that rumour had anything in it, then surely Ragnick would be the sporting director for the football group at that level.
Yeah. Listen, it was a story. Don't even know if there's any a grain of truth in it. I have no idea. It was just something, Tom, that was out last week, and I just thought it was interesting, but who knows? Evan Viking says, on the takeover, it's best to take everything with a pinch of salt.
Well said.
On a positive note, Broja's interview was really good, and he spoke very well. And
Good.
he said, I just want a resolution. That means the club is safe financially and can compete again. We all do, mate. That's all we do, don't we?
We'll be calmed in that.
Andy M says, Leicester's lawyers are better than ours.
No. Better hand to play.
And Corin, who's one of our members, says, Baz, the right winger with pace, are you mad? It's Everton, lol. And Corin also says, looking forward to seeing Broja play if he gets a game. I'd like to see what a not so negative manager could do with them. Well, let's see what happens. We're on an international break now. We've got a big game next week at Aston Villa. It'll be a huge game and a real big, tough test for the Toffees because they're a good side. They're playing well.
They are.
We'll see. There's
When's the CL start?
Not before that game. The week
No,
after.
I know. I just wondered.
I think
generally.
the week after.
Yeah. Because they've got
the
some
week
sticker
after,
off ticket prices, haven't they? So.
Yeah, bit naughty, but hey ho. Right, we're going to be on More Than a Game at 2:00. So if you want more footy chat, use the Super Highway magical
Super Highway.
wizard
Ned's
Harry
Magic
Potter
Highway,
link
is that called?
that he's going to do. Now he's sat there with slides and socks on. I've let it go, but he's going to sort this the link. Okay, he's letting his toe
Take your
breathe.
socks off then.
I lost a nail last night.
Did you find it?
Hang on, sorry, just to finish. Surely, if you were letting it truly breathe, you wouldn't have a sock on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but people will be going, oh, look
Not
at
if
the toe, it's
if you've
blood
got a
all over
medical
it.
reason why the sock cannot be on, I will overlook it.
It is grim, though.
I'm not going to come over and examine it. But if you want air to get at it, putting a cotton sock over
need
it
foot
ain't
cam.
gonna help.
This is fine.
We
for
need
now.
foot cam now, don't we?
Okay. Right, enough of that. Get over to MTAG in a minute. It's going to be great. See you in a bit.